Hi, Aquarius Sun and Rising. Welcome to your March 2025 Astro Update. It's Rena here. So, March is a pivotal month. I do think 2025 as a whole is such a turning point for humanity, but March really takes the cake in terms of the variety of major transits that are occurring. So, you have eclipses, you have Mercury retrogrades, and a generational planet going into a new sign. Oh my. So, let me just start at the beginning of the month. So, first of all, at the beginning of the month, it's Pisces season until the astrological new year, obviously. And this year, that's going to be on the 20th of the month. So for approximately the first 3 weeks, the sun is going to be in your financial sector, the second house. But you don't just have the sun there. You have Mercury there. You have Saturn there. You have Neptune there. And you're also going to have two personal planets retrograding back there. So they're going to back up into that financial sector. So your money situation should be very interesting in March. It should be like a focal point. But anyway, on the first of the month, Venus goes retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries, and this is your third house. The third house is the house of communication. It can be social media or media in general, including, good old-fashioned journalism or the, pathetic remnants of it that exist nowadays. Yeah, that is editorializing. But the news but it can be your personal communications with people. And it's actually your siblings, so family members can be your brothers and sisters, can be your aunts, uncles, cousins. And you might be with Venus retrograding here. There's something happening with um, Venus can be money, but it can also be what you value, what's important to you. And the third house is also education. Like if you're a teacher, it would be like the lower grades and it would be high school. So an example would be, let's say you are an elementary school teacher and you have had it. You're tired of going through a, what do you call those, metal detector. You're tired of school, disaster drills, or I have a background in education, but not as a teacher, as a teacher's assistant, and also studying to be a teacher. And I know even when I was working in the schools 20 years ago, they had these mandates and it was horrible. They had No Child Left Behind, and then they had Common Core, and the teachers called it Common Crud. And who knows what they have now? That was 20 years ago. So I'm just using that as an example, but Venus retrograde would be like what you value is not what you're seeing in that space. And you may be kind of rethinking it. And on the third, Mercury goes into Aries. So Mercury goes into this sector as well. So you're really pouring energy into thinking about third house matters for some reason. On the 14th, there's a lunar eclipse at almost 24 degrees of Virgo. And for you, Virgo is the eighth house. Now, this is very interesting because um, Aquarius, Aquarius is actually I don't use the word with Aquarius as spiritual, even though I'm sure some of you are quite spiritual, but intuitive. And the reason I use that word instead is because Aquarius is an air sign, and air signs are intellectuals. So even if an air sign person gets involved in religion or spirituality, mysticism, what have you, there always tends to be a mental component. There's a branch of yoga called Jnana, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Jnana yoga or whatever it's called, Jnana type of yoga, which is the mental, for people who are intellectuals. Buddhism is kind of a religion for intellectuals. The other one is part of the yogic path. It's a certain path of yoga. And, because there's all the types of belief systems that have a spiritual component that are, right for a certain type of person. So that's why I use the word intuition. And the eighth house is Scorpio's house in astrology. So it does deal with, emotions, because Scorpio's a water sign, and it tends to be those very, murky, uncomfortable emotions that people tend to sweep under the rug. So it's the shadow side. It's a person's shadow. And it does connect with psychotherapy, and I realized, I had this aha moment. I said, because I always was thinking, these new agey types would talk about, oh, you have to do shadow work and stuff like that. And I was like, well, how do you do shadow work? Well, I realized that psychotherapy is shadow work. You're delving into your psyche, which you could call the subconscious mind, where you're kind of shoving everything down into and kind of bringing it up for the sunlight to disinfect it, basically. But it's also the house of metaphysics. It's the house of astrology and the tarot. And actually, Aquarius is connected to astrology. So, this lunar eclipse is a very powerful full moon, and full moons illumine things. Now, the eighth house is the house of secrets. So, something major, I think of the tower, the tower moment, something that was hidden comes to light. But the tower to me ultimately is a release. It's not anything to be afraid of at all. So something like this can be like a major kind of purge at this time. On the 15th, which is the very next day, Mercury goes retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries, back talking about that whatchamacallit, that third house again. So, one thing I want to say though about that purge or whatever of talking about this emotional house is, I do think it is difficult for the average Aquarius to deal with something like this, because you do tend to want to remain detached in your life. You don't want to just, even like if somebody is like touchy-feely and very like giddy, you might like recoil at that too. It's funny because the signs of Aquarius and Virgo are like form an in conjunction, which means that they're 150 degrees apart in very weird combination. But there's like that kind of like, I get that vibe from the sign of Aquarius of almost like that persnickety kind of a thing, like kind of recoiling at stuff. So I don't know. But anyway, if you're, so in other words, when Mercury goes retrograde in the third, this is the house that Mercury rules. So it does have a connection to that house. You may be rethinking something that you're studying. Maybe you're studying for some certification. Maybe you're teaching and you're not sure if you want to do that. Whatever. Maybe you have a misunderstanding with one of your siblings. On the 20th, the sun goes into Aries, the astrological new year. In this area, normally we'd say, woo, you're going to have like this whole new cycle start. But I think there's going to be a delay until mid-April because of the personal planet retrogrades in Aries, in Mercury and Venus, that when they go direct in April, that will make all of the transits in Aries more usable, or whatever you want to call it. On the 27th, Venus goes retrograde back into Pisces, and on the 29th, Mercury goes retro back into Pisces, which is that second house of earned income. Oh, yeah, and another thing that the third house represents is online stuff. So if you have an online business, if you have an online business or website, maybe you haven't started, because Venus like retrograding in the third house could affect your online earnings. But you may be rethinking, with Mercury retrograde, like, okay, what is the best way to earn money? And when these planets retrograde back into second house, you may even go back to some way that you used to have to earn money, and try that method. That's why I say, when both of these planets goes back into Aries and back to the degree, like 9-10 degrees that they retrograded at, that will be more information you will have by then. Also, with Venus being about your values, what you value in the second house, it really does, because that's the house that Venus rules. So you're really kind of reflecting on that. Okay, money, and that comedian that's well beyond, before my time, Jack Benny, that I really didn't, follow his show or anything like that, but he had a famous line, "Your money or your life," and he would say, I'm thinking, because I guess his character was supposed to be very stingy or what have you. But really, it is something that we have to look at sometimes. If somebody is working to the exclusion of not being able to have much of a balance in their life, that could really be something to look at. And people do look at it sometimes when they reach a boiling point and they're like, no, something has to give, and I have to, be able to let it go if need be. And on the same day as the Mercury retrograde, back into Pisces, I should say, in that second house, you have a solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries in the third house. So new beginnings, new seeds being planted in the area of communication, online adventures, including social media, teaching and learning, that can manifest maybe even in April that much more strongly. On the very next day, on the 30th, Neptune goes into Aries for the first time in like 200 years or 180, I don't know, something like that. Wow. This is, a very important development. But Neptune will be in 2025 will end with Neptune having gone back into Pisces, into that second house of earned income. When it's in your third house, what can that mean? I think I might do videos on this for each sign just so that, because this is a very big deal. It's going to be in this house for a long time, for years on end. So it makes sense to do a separate video on that. But I will say that this could be something where you are experiencing I would call it like an upgrade, a spiritual upgrade in your consciousness. So the third house is ruled by Mercury, and it's all about the mind. Neptune is spiritual, a spiritual influence and psychic influence. We would say the third house is logical, and Neptune is illogical to the mundane mind, but it's a spiritual upgrade to the way that your consciousness, if you will. And so this may be a time for the next decade plus where you really start to get into meditation, where you really start to, maybe, third house could be writing. Maybe you start doing automatic writing, or creative writing. Creative writing could be a big one if you are somebody who loves to write fiction. And that could be like a huge boost to people that want to be authors. So anyway, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, I have some package deals that, are, specially priced, and single readings with all kinds of things like chart analysis, transits, love, career. You can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Bye.